All right, in this video, I want to talk to you about making your roof. There's a lot of different ways you can go about making your roof. So I'm going to look at 4 basic types here, and hopefully one of those fits your style. You might end up making the roof if you have a rancher. You might end up making the roof in one shot with a hip roof, something like this. If you're doing something more modern, maybe you're doing a bunch of different shed roofs like you see in the middle here, or maybe something more traditional, a gable style. This blue thing over here, this is a 3D mass, and you can create a roof type by a mass. It's a little different. I'm not going to put all the instructions in this video on making a mass. If you are thinking about doing this for like an ultra modern design or something like that, shoot me an email and I'll make you a quick video on that. So I'll just show you this one to get this out of the way. You can, from the roof drop down, you can do a roof by face. So I've already selected this mass, and then I can click on that face and hit create roof, and then I have that roof, and I can go back through, and I can either delete the mass or I can hide it at that time, but that gives me that kind of weird barrel shape with a slope on it, because that's how I specified my mass to set that up. Now I can still take the roof and I can still pull it in different directions. So if that's something you want, shoot me an email. We'll talk about a roof by a mass, or you can check that out on your own. It's under massing and site, and you create an in-place mass first. But that's something maybe some of you want to use. We're going to start with the hip roof, this top one here. Again, I would not use all 3 different styles on a home. This is just for examples. This home's probably going to look best with the shed roof, maybe a gable somewhere, but if I do all shed roofs, it's going to tie things together a little bit more. So I'm going to start just by deleting this, and if we look at where I am, this is up on level 3 for me. So I'm going to go to like level 3 there, maybe level 2. We're going to take a look at those walls. Now I could choose to have the roof go in around these indents here and go in around this corner. We'll see what that looks like, but we want our roof to be as simple as possible. So I'm going to go to roof, and I am using for this roof an 18-inch overhang. That'll be dependent upon your design. I am in the select walls tool versus a draw tool. That's going to change the way your wall looks a little bit. So I would select walls for most of these. And I have defined slopes on right now. So I'll go around and I'm just going to click. Let's say I want to do everything. See how it builds inside of there. And you have to make sure you clean up anything that overlaps. So let's say we have all these in here. We're going to go back with the trim tool, and I'm going to clean up these 2 items. I think everything else looks good. I don't like to have 2 on the same 2 segments there, so I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to use the trim tool to bring these 2 segments together. I'm also going to delete this one and just bring these 2 pieces together with trim. I just find that usually makes it a little bit cleaner. And then we'll hit the check mark and see what we got on that. We'll go to our 3D, and if you notice, it's on level 2. So I'm going to take this roof and I'm going to put that on the correct level, which is level 3 for me. And then you can do a couple things with pitch. So if you like kind of all those different shapes in there, you can keep them that way. I don't recommend you grab this. You can change the pitch with this. But over in your properties browser, this is where you should be changing the pitch. So let's say I want to use like a 5/12, so 5 inches of rise for every 12 inches of run. That's going to lower that. You know, if you're doing a prairie style or something like that, that might be kind of what you're going for. Now, if I want to simplify that roof, I can select it, and then once it's selected, edit footprint comes up, and that takes me back into the sketch environment. So let's say I want to make this roof a little simpler. I'm going to get rid of a bunch of this geometry and clean things up here. So again, I'll use the trim tool to bring these 2 elements together and these 2 elements together. You can't have any extra lines like this, so I'm going to delete those, and we'll see what we got here. So that's what I had before, just a very simple little hipped roof where all things go up. If you like the extra lines in there, you can do that, but that's your hipped roof, and that's with defined slopes on everything. Next type is the gable roof. So if I edit my footprint here, I only have the defined slopes. Those are these little triangles on the 2 edges that I want to have slope. The one against the house, the one on here, I don't want to have that. So I'll go through and we will start from scratch on this one. So I'll delete this roof and go to level 2 to draw that roof on. So that is right here. And I'm going to go back to my roof tool. I still am in the select walls or pick walls tool. I still have an 18-inch overhang and I have defined slopes on. So I'm going to select these lines along the outside walls. Now, notice this one, if I did this, I'll end up with a hip roof. So I'm going to select this, and then I can uncheck defined slopes to get that little triangle off of there. For the line that goes against the house here, I'm not going to use pick walls. I'm just going to go to a regular line, and I'm just going to snap in right along the edge of the house. And then I will go back with the trim tool and make sure I have a nice, neat profile on that. Notice that I got a defined slope on that, so I have to select that line and take that off. I also could have done that before I drew the line. Then I'll hit the check mark and we'll go to 3D and see what we have. Now this is a little bit higher pitch. I think the default's typically a 912. So if we click on our roof over here, we can see we have a 912 slope. If I want to drop this down, let's say I want to do a 612 slope, I can hit apply on that. You can see how that lowers that. Now if we look at this roof from the edge, if you think about the house you live in, you don't have like 14 inches of fascia depth here. You have a fascia board, and then you have a soffit that goes underneath that. The fascia is what the gutter's nailed to. So if you look at this rafter cut option, you want to do typically a 2-cut plumb, and then you set your fascia depth. Most fascia is like 5.5 inches. So we'll hit apply on that. And you can see how that cuts that detail back. That's going to make that roof look a lot nicer. Another thing you'll need to do is to fill in some of these spaces, like above this gable end wall here. We need to attach that up to the roof. So I'm going to select this wall, and I'm going to use the attach top base, grab my roof system, and then it's going to pop that up there for me. All right, so you may have to do that on the shed roof, like we'll go over that here as well. On the hip roof, that's typically not something that you need to do, but you will anytime you're doing a gable end wall on there. All right, so the shed roof that I put on this half here, I'm not going to redraw everything. We've gone through that, but I will go into Edit Footprint and take a look at what I have here. So again, I've drawn this. I used my offset lines along here. I used the regular line tool along here. And then I only have defined slopes on this one edge. Now this is a very low sloped roof. This is a 312. If you're going with something ultra modern like this, it will have to be like a standing metal seam or rubber roof. You cannot do shingles anything less than 4.5 over 12, or they're going to weep and leak. So if you're doing this, you're going to shoot for that metal roof. So if I'm doing this 312 here and I'm happy with all the lines, I'll hit the check mark on that. And then as we look at that from here, a couple things I'll have to fill in. One, I have this wall here that's got to attach up there. So I'll select that wall, and then I'll go to attach top base and grab this. So that's going to pop that up here. But this looks a little strange now. So, I had this storefront wall in here that was embedded. Now I'll take this storefront wall and say, okay, well, originally it had a top offset of -1 feet. So that was -1 feet down from level 2. So now let's see what like 4 feet would look like above level 2. So that's going to pop that up there. And you can play around with that. Maybe you want that around there. Maybe you want to go a little bit higher. Let's see what like 6 feet does. That looks pretty cool up to the roof there. Now notice you will have to add a wall along here to fill in this area. So if you're doing a shed roof and it's not going to continue across, up on level 2 you're going to have to draw a wall here and then attach it. This is an interior wall down here, so I could attach that up to this wall, but if I do that, I have basically drywall on the outside of my house right now, so that's not going to work for me. So I would need to go into like level 2 here, and I would have to draw a piece of that exterior wall. And so if I go to, let's see, where's my stone wall here, and I want to try to attach that at this point here. So I was finished faced interior. Let's try finished faced exterior. Draw this across here, and let's see what we get up in 3D here. All right, so this wall then would get attached to the roof system, and then you just have that little bit peeking out. Now, of course, you do need to put some kind of roof across this as well. So maybe this is another shed roof, and you might end up with just a little sliver of that wall exposed there. But that's something that you may need to do as you work through your design. So those are some basic roof types, and you can play around with stuff. So like after this is done, if I don't like what the 312 looks like, if I want to pop this in here and say, let's try like a 2, and again, this would be something with a metal roof, I could drop that down. Now notice that messed up my storefront wall, so I'd have to then go back and change the base offset on this and maybe drop this down to that 4-foot increment now, so that that looks a little bit nicer on the structure. So you have to think about what's going to work with your design. Biggest thing is making sure the water rolls away from the structure. So as a bad example here, if I went to edit footprint, if I put define slopes on over here and hit the check mark on that, we don't want anything here that the water is going to roll in against the wall. It's all got to shed across or shed off the roof and make sure it sheds onto the ground, so, or into a gutter. So pay attention to that as you're working with it. Try to make sure your roof matches your design. Now I'm just using a generic roof here, but there is a wood rafter on asphalt shingle. That's going to give you that look if that's what you want. I would just simply edit this one. So if you go into edit type here, then you could add on whatever type of material you want on the top, whether that's standing metal seam, whether you're doing some kind of Spanish tile. And you also probably want to update your wood structure. So you did a section view of this earlier on. Most likely you're using a 2x10 for this, so this will be 9.5 inches for your structure. If you are doing a Spanish tile or something, typically there's not plywood sheathing on there. You can edit that depending on what you came up with for your roof design. But you know, try to make it match as best you can. Play with those roof pitches and make sure you get a roof all around your house here. Now eventually you're going to be working on the inside of your house, so you can always hide this stuff. I talked about this in an earlier video, but you may need to like select this, and you know, you might want to hide all categories. So later on, if you're putting, you know, interior walls in, or if you're adding kitchen components down here, countertops, if you want to put in TVs and beds, a lot of times you'll need to do that. And then to bring those back, you just hit the light bulb. And then since I hid by category, I should be able to unhide by category here instead of by element. And then you can work from there. All right, that's it on roofs. If you need more help, shoot me an email. I'll come out with some other videos. Hopefully you're